Finishes the year 8-5. Got Coach Chalk with us, and Coach, now you've had a few days to sort of process the end of the season in your head. Maybe some of your final thoughts as Montana looks forward to signing day next.
Sure, thanks, Tabes. A lot of great stuff this season. Incredibly good at times, and then not as good a few times too. So, really proud of this team. They competed hard. They played really hard every time out. I mean, every single time out. So, looking back on the season a little bit, really enjoyed it. Enjoyed being around them. As I've said, you guys are probably tired of me saying it, but I'm going to say it one more time. Really, really enjoyed this team a lot. I thought playing for the top 5 teams in the country on the road over a 7-week period was a little bit extreme, and I think that took its toll on us a little bit. Beyond that, it was a good year, and I enjoyed it.
Questions?
Bobby, if you could describe this year and this team in one word, what would it be and why?
Competitive. Oh, and why? Well, that's not one word. No, I'm just kidding. Probably go back to what I just said. They went out and they competed hard every time out. I mean, it's rewarding as a football guy to watch these guys play and the way they approach the preparation, the way they play the game, the way they compete. It's rewarding.
Bobby, when you talk about just the playing that many teams in that stretch, some of the top teams in the country, a lot of playoff teams, did you ever experience anything like that before in any past coaching seasons? Like, I guess, was there anything to compare it to, or was that kind of a unique experience?
That was unique. I've been actually thinking about that a little bit over the years. I don't ever remember a stretch like that ever. I mean, that's the way it goes. There's not much you can. I mean, there's nothing you can do about it, but it's what you're faced with, and you have to go win them. Some of them we didn't.
How did this year and the way it finished compare to your expectations before the season began?
Well, I don't really have any before the season. I expect to play the next game and win it. Big picture, I expect to win them all every year.
You mentioned that you did have times when it was incredibly good. When it was incredibly good, what were the Montana Grizzlies doing well?
I think playing well in all 3 phases. Running the ball, stopping the run, winning the turnover battle, all those things. Playing good in the special teams, playing well in the special teams. When we're doing that, we're hard to beat.
And just on the other side of the coin, how would you describe when it wasn't going as well as maybe you expected or wanted?
Well, it's exactly the opposite. Not stopping the run, not running the ball well enough, not generating enough points or first downs, not getting off the field on 3rd down. I mean, it's all the usual suspects.
You guys were picked to win the league this year, so do you think that affected the mentality of the team coming into the year at all, or during the year?
I hope not. I wouldn't think so. As I said, we're kind of week to week, so I hope not.
And then when the season comes to an end, what are some of the first few postseason tasks you're taking care of, or what's your schedule kind of look like on a daily as you transition over?
Well, you get immediately into recruiting. We got a signing day coming up in 2 weeks from Wednesday. We've got finals week next week, so we've got to get ourselves back in line academically and compete for grades next week, because that's obviously important in this program. So recruiting, school, for the guys that are coming back, get them freshened up, get ready to go train.
And then when you mention recruiting, the way the transfer portal is these days, do you have to do any of that in-house? Has it kind of changed the way that you guys do your recruiting?
In-house meaning?
Like having conversation with the guys about how they're feeling about, sticking with the program.
There's a lot of different philosophy on that, but I'm kind of, if you don't want to be here, get out. We've got a great place and a great team, and it's a special deal. So if it's not for you, good. We'll get guys in here that want to be.
when it comes to kind of, attacking the portal or recruiting.
When I say that, I haven't had any conversations with anybody on our team today, so that's good. Sorry, Sean.
When it comes to kind of the board and seeing like what you might need in certain position groups, are there certain groups that come to mind as far as that's where we're going to look for in the portal?
Not really. Just kind of good play. The more good players you have on your team, the better you're going to be, as always.
When you look back on the year, you obviously mentioned some of the things that you didn't do well. How do you improve upon some of those areas moving forward when you take more of a, bigger look at it?
Yeah, practice. That's how you improve. Practice. Get better at football by playing it.
And then what's the process or timeline as far as maybe talking with other coaches and talking with staff as far as who is coming back, or if you're, retaining other coaches?
I don't know. That's not for you guys. That's for me and my staff.
Throughout this year, Bobby, you had some young guys kind of step up into roles. So it's like on paper next year you got 4 offensive linemen who will be back. Some guys step into roles like you have like your Aaron Fonts of the world, like some of these other guys, Henry Nooses. When you look at them and their development this year, how much excitement does that give you, knowing that there are some kind of key players who will come back? Because like you've always said, college you always lose guys, but you have some talented guys who kind of showed out a little bit this year too.
Yeah, well, like you and I talked yesterday, it's the circle of the calendar in college football. I am always excited about what's going on here, and I'm excited about our, as disappointed as I am with seeing our seniors' eligibility be up, I'm excited about the guys that we'll recruit, and I'm excited about the guys we have coming back. So, as I said, these guys have worked awfully hard. They've gone hard, really hard, since the end of May, and they need to get refreshed, but our group will be excited to get going in January.
And then when you do your recruiting, do you do it to find guys who best fit your scheme, or do you just get the best talent and then try to build the scheme, around what they do best?
Well, a little of both, And there's a little of both of that. I mean, guys that can run and jump and change direction and are athletic, or you can. Those are good guys to coach.
Coach, you mentioned seeing 3, 4, 5 of the top teams in the country. What did you learn from seeing those teams? What's the gap between Montana and those teams?
Well, it depends on the game, So that's a little bit broad. If you could point that down a little for me.
Well, I guess to start with last week, then North Dakota State. I mean, obviously the team that has won it all 9 out of the last 10 years. So, what do you think they have that's maybe different than everybody else?
Well, they're really, really good up front, and that we gave up 4 big runs in that game. I watched the film. Can't do that. But beyond that, it's not that far apart. I mean, watching the film, I'm encouraged watching it, frankly.
But does that give you optimism moving forward? Just that you feel like you are close?
Yeah. I mean, you know me. I'm pretty optimistic, generally speaking. But, yeah, I think we have a good team. I think we have a good team coming back, as Kyle alluded to.
In terms of the fronts, how would you evaluate your fronts this year, and how close are you on that element of football?
I think we're good up front. And they're young on both sides, so a lot of guys coming back on both sides of the ball up front. I think they can certainly compete with anybody we play.
How has the portal maybe changed from when it first kind of got going to now? I imagine there's just obviously more people. And what have you learned as far as having to navigate that as a staff?
Well, in terms of the transfer portal is just a clearinghouse where people declare they're transferring. So it's an information site. One of the ways it's changed is there's no ineligibility in terms of transferring. You don't have to sit. That's the main way it's changed. So somebody said to me the 3 most populous places in America are L.A., New York, and the transfer portal. So that was today's conversation. But it's a piece of it. It's not that different than JC recruiting 25 years ago. I mean, you're going to go fill needs that you don't think your freshmen can answer, or you get guys flunk out of school or leave or whatever. Then you probably fill it with more veteran kids. Yeah, it is what it is. I mean, it's changed, but there's more guys available, I guess, to transfer. You don't have to just look at the junior colleges.
When it comes to your quarterback position, you lose a seventh-year guy, veteran guy there. So how would you evaluate that moving forward? Will you guys seek out more transfers at quarterback?
Yeah, I think we're always in the market. We probably are always in the market year in, year out. That's the nature of that position, it seems like, nationally. So I think we're like everybody else, yeah.
We've talked about it so much throughout this last year, just how you kind of identified guys that you thought would fit into your program first and foremost coming out of the portal. Now that this season's all said and done, how do you think those guys, the Justin Fords of the world, fit in?
Well, our biggest piece, when we recruit freshmen, I'm backtracking on you a little bit, but when we recruit freshmen, we feel like we're recruiting kids that we can mold, and they're high school kids. We're going to mold them into Montana Grizzlies and develop them into good young men that are going to be successful. The transfer piece, maybe the most critical element, is are they our kind of guy? Because they have to be able to be willing to put the team first. They have to be willing to be coached hard. They have to be able to be our kind of guy in terms of work ethic and all those things, because they're not seniors in high school. They're guys that are in some ways nearing the end of their college career. So they have to be able to immerse themselves in the program. So they have to be wired the right way. Probably the critical piece with the transfers. Can you guys hear my phone buzzing? It's crazy. It's been all day. Since we sat down here, there's 6 texts on that one and 2 on this one and 3 calls. It's wild.
Schematically, what will you evaluate in this offseason moving forward?
Well, we'll do what we always do. We'll evaluate personnel. We'll evaluate scheme. We'll evaluate how opponents were attacking us. All of that. That's what once we get done with recruiting, that's what we do between now and, with the pause for spring practice, that's what we do between now and May.
Defensively, both Montana State and North Dakota State ran similar things to similar success in the run game. How much will you look at that element of it? What do you guys need to improve run defense-wise?
Yeah. Well, they weren't all that similar. The quarterback run game in the rivalry game was where we fell down. The big play on the A-gap power and the cutback on the zone against North Dakota State, that's just, we made some bad plays and some bad calls there. We're okay in that one. It's the earlier one that was a problem. We got to fix that.
And then you mentioned getting, more veteran guys coming in to fill roles that you need. On the flip side of that, do you feel like there's any downside to those guys having not, come up through your program and built with you? How do you look at that?
Well, it's sort of what I was talking about a second ago. You got to get the right guys. So there's really no downside if you have the right guy. It's an age-old debate, coaching and recruiting. It's been going on since I started coaching. How much of that do you do? There are teams, there are Division I football teams that take no high school kids at this juncture. I think that's outlandish, but there are people that are doing it that way. We're not going to be that way. But, we'll the way things have changed, and I'm going back to Sean's question, the way things have changed with all these new rules is you are now not recruiting, generally speaking, across the landscape of college football, all of us. You're not recruiting for the future. You're recruiting to put a team on the field next August. That's it. That's the situation we've all been placed in. And the next follow-up question should be, do I like it? And the answer is no, but that's irrelevant.
Such an interesting point, right? Because it's bigger than all of us, right? So it doesn't really matter if you like it or
Yeah,
not.
it doesn't matter if I like it or want it to be different. It's not going to be. And so you either figure it out and adapt like you do in any situation, and professionally or in life, or you fail. And we're just not going to fail around here.
You mentioned to some of these guys after the game in Fargo that this was your favorite team you've ever coached. Why is that? Oh,
Just who they are, how much they care about Montana, what they're willing to do for each other and for Grizzly football. I mean, without blinking an eye, I mean, they're just unbelievably bought in, competitive. And then when you couple that with the fact they're great dudes, like good to be around every day, and they're just, this is a special group. And I've been around some really awesome teams that I love dearly, but this group's special.
do you hope that some of those selfless characteristics have been passed on from the guys that are on their way out the door to some of the younger guys in the program?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I kind of count on that.
What's the number one goal for Montana moving forward now into this offseason?
Well, I mean, you can go through the calendar. What's your goal today may not be the goal in February. I mean, the goal today is to go out and recruit well. The goal for the players currently in the program is to have a good finals week. The goal for January is to come back, make sure everybody's ready to roll, and then have a good off season. And then it'll be spring ball, and then it'll be spring recruiting, and it'll be summer training. That's the year.
Last one here. College football is just so crazy right now, just with everything going on. How would you evaluate the Big Sky Conference, the FCS, and where Montana fits into both the conference and the national landscape?
That's such a loaded question. I mean, I have no idea. You know, it's hard to project. It's really hard to project. You can't. Everything's going to trickle down, right? So I have no idea. I don't know. I mean, I have thoughts on it, but they're all just random meanderings through my head. It's nothing. I can't give you anything concrete on that if I wanted to. And maybe I shouldn't say that. I want to. I can't give you anything concrete.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
In the here and now, though, do you still believe that Montana is a program that can dominate the Big Sky and compete for national championships at the FCS level?
Sure, why not? I can't think of one reason why not. I mean, we have been. Just got to quit coming up short.
What are you most optimistic about with this program moving into next year?
I think we got a good nucleus of players coming back that can really play well and compete. We had frankly, a pretty young team. I suppose that's it.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep.